Caught in the act, the heartbreaking moment I discovered my husband's infidelity with our baby in the backseat. I stood in the nursery, folding the last of Sarah's tiny clothes, the scent of baby powder lingering in the air. My fingers grazed the soft cotton of her onesie, a sense of calm washing over me as I leaned against the doorframe. Sarah was fast asleep in her crib, her chest rising and falling so peacefully. Moments like these made the chaos of raising 3 young children feel worth it, even when exhaustion was my constant companion. It had been a long day, but then again, every day felt long. Between Anna, our 5-year-old, Jack, our 3-year-old, and baby Sarah, there wasn't much time left for anything else. The sound of Anna and Jack's laughter drifted down the hall, filling the house with a warmth that I cherished. But in the back of my mind, there was always something off. I glanced at my phone. No response from Michael. It had been hours since I'd texted him about dinner. He used to be so attentive, but these days, it felt like his phone might as well be glued to his hand for anyone but me. The excuse was always the same: work. He was always busy, always staying late, always too tired to engage by the time he came home. In our 10 years of marriage, I'd never thought we'd end up like this. We had met in college, the classic whirlwind romance. Late night studying turned into long, deep conversations about life, love, and our dreams for the future. When we got married, I was sure he was my soulmate. But life with 3 kids under 5 wasn't what I'd envisioned. Still, I trusted him. Even as the distance between us grew, even as I felt that invisible wall slowly building higher and higher, I trusted him. "Mommy, can we have spaghetti for dinner tonight?" Anna's voice broke through my thoughts, her big brown eyes looking up at me with the innocence of a child who didn't yet understand the weight of the world. "Sure, sweetheart," I said, giving her a tired smile. "Let's get your brother and we'll go pick up some groceries." With Jack in tow, we piled into the car, and as I pulled out of the driveway, my phone buzzed in the cup holder. I glanced down, hoping it was Michael, finally responding to my earlier message. But it wasn't him. Just another notification, more unimportant than the growing silence between us. As I turned onto our street, something caught my eye, a familiar car parked on the side of the road. Michael's car. My heart skipped a beat, and I automatically slowed down. Why would he be parked there? It wasn't near the office, and he hadn't mentioned any errands. I could feel my pulse quicken as I pulled up behind his car. The windows were fogged. For a split second, I thought maybe Sarah had woken up during the drive and he had pulled over to soothe her. But then I saw the movement. My breath caught in my throat, and my hands clenched the steering wheel. The car rocked ever so slightly. No, this couldn't be what I thought it was. I turned off the engine, my heart hammering against my ribs, my hands shaking. I glanced at Anna and Jack in the backseat. They were laughing at something silly, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside of me. I felt like the world was spinning as I stepped out of the car, the pavement hard beneath my feet as I walked slowly towards Michael's vehicle. I could see 2 figures. And then, I saw her. Blonde. Younger than me. Wrapped around my husband in a way that made my stomach twist in knots I couldn't unravel. I could feel the bile rising in my throat. My hand shot out before I could even think, knocking on the window so hard I startled myself. The world felt like it was moving in slow motion. I could see Michael's head snap up, his eyes wide in panic when he realized it was me standing there. He scrambled to pull away from her, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. And the worst part, my eyes drifted to the back seat, was Sarah, still strapped into her car seat, fast asleep and completely unaware of what was happening just inches away from her. That was the moment everything inside me shattered. I knocked again, harder this time. "Open the door," I hissed, barely recognizing the sound of my own voice. Michael fumbled for the lock, and when the door finally swung open, the smell of sweat and sex hit me like a wave. I stepped back, disgusted, every fiber of my being screaming at me to run, but my feet were glued to the spot. I could feel the rage boiling inside me, mixing with the hurt and disbelief. "Emma, wait, Shut up." The words came out before I could stop them. My voice was shaking, but I didn't care. "Just shut up." The blonde girl, no, woman, I corrected myself, trying to anchor my thoughts, was frantically trying to adjust her clothes, her face flushed red. I didn't care about her. She wasn't who I needed to focus on right now. "How could you?" I spat at him, my voice breaking. I could barely breathe, the pain in my chest so raw, so intense, I thought I might collapse. "With our baby in the backseat? Are you kidding me, Michael?" He looked at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, but no words came. There was nothing he could say that would make this okay. There was nothing that could ever take this back. Emma, it's not what you think. Not what I think? I laughed, the sound harsh, bitter. I just caught you screwing another woman with our daughter in the car, Michael. What exactly am I supposed to think? His hands trembled, his face pale, and for a second, I saw fear in his eyes. Good. He should be scared. This isn't, Emma, please, I can explain. Let's just go home and talk. I love you, you know I love you. Don't you dare say that to me right now, I whispered, feeling the tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. You don't get to say that. Not after this. Behind him, the woman, I refused to think of her as anything more, looked like she wanted to disappear. I could see her shifting uncomfortably, glancing at me and then at Michael, probably waiting for some cue to leave. I didn't care about her. I cared about the man standing in front of me, the man I had trusted, the father of my children, the person I had built my entire life around. And he had just destroyed it all in a single moment. I want you to take Sarah home, I said finally, my voice cold, detached. I couldn't let myself feel anything more right now. I'll follow with Anna and Jack. And when we get there, you're going to pack a bag and leave. Emma, please, just listen. No. I shook my head, cutting him off. There's nothing you can say to fix this, Michael. Not now. He looked defeated, like the weight of what he had done was just starting to sink in. Good. He should feel that weight. He should feel it crush him. He turned slowly, picking up Sarah from her car seat, her tiny face peaceful as she stirred in his arms. It hurt to watch him cradle her so gently, as if he were still the man I thought I knew. But I couldn't look away. I had to see this through. As I stood there, watching him drive away, the tears finally started to fall. My hands shook as I wiped them away, but they just kept coming, each one a reminder of the life I had lost in the blink of an eye. I walked back to my car, trying to pull myself together for Anna and Jack. I couldn't let them see me like this. Not yet. They were too young to understand the kind of pain their mother was in. Too innocent to know that the man who was supposed to protect them had shattered everything. But as I buckled myself back in and started the car, I knew one thing for sure, nothing would ever be the same again. As I pulled into the driveway, my heart felt heavy, like it was dragging my entire body down with it. Anna and Jack were still in the back seat, laughing and playing, completely oblivious to the wreckage that had just unfolded in our lives. I sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. How was I supposed to go inside and pretend that everything was okay when my entire world had just come crashing down? I couldn't breathe. The weight of it all, the betrayal, the lies, the hurt, was suffocating. But I didn't have the luxury of breaking down. Not yet. I had to be strong for my children, even if I was falling apart inside. Mommy? Anna's soft voice pulled me back to reality. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror, her big brown eyes full of innocence and concern. Are we going inside now? Yeah, sweetheart, I said, forcing a smile. Let's go inside. I unbuckled them from their car seats and walked them into the house, my mind still spinning. As they ran off to play in the living room, I stood there in the hallway, staring at nothing. I could hear Michael's car pull up a few minutes later, the sound of the engine cutting off sending a fresh wave of nausea through me. He walked in through the front door, holding Sarah in his arms. For a moment, he looked at me, his eyes pleading, but I couldn't meet his gaze. I was too angry, too hurt. He broke the silence first. Emma, please. Can we just talk? I know I messed up, but... You think this is something we can talk about? My voice was cold, detached. I didn't have the energy for rage anymore. You had sex with another woman, Michael. With our baby in the car. How do you even begin to explain that? He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Good. I didn't want to hear his excuses. I pointed to the stairs. Go pack a bag. You're leaving tonight. He hesitated, looking like he wanted to argue, but there was no point. He knew I wasn't going to change my mind. With a heavy sigh, he handed Sarah to me and went upstairs. I held my baby close, breathing in her sweet scent, trying to steady myself. Sarah squirmed in my arms, her tiny hands reaching for my face. She had no idea what was happening, no idea how much had changed in the last hour. None of them did. And I had to keep it that way. By the time Michael came back downstairs with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder, the weight of the situation seemed to hang in the air like a storm cloud. He looked at me one last time, his face full of regret, but I didn't respond. I couldn't. He left without another word, the door closing behind him with a soft click. The sound echoed through the house, leaving behind a deafening silence. I stood there for a moment, staring at the door, feeling numb. How had it come to this? Just a few hours ago, I thought we were a normal family, maybe a little worn out from the stresses of life and kids, but still a family. Now everything felt broken beyond repair. I collapsed onto the couch, holding Sarah tightly against me, my body finally giving in to the exhaustion that had been threatening to take over since the moment I saw them together. Tears slipped down my cheeks, silently, as I rocked her back and forth, trying to find some comfort in the rhythm. I don't know when I fell asleep, but when I woke up, the house was quiet. Too quiet. The sun was starting to peek through the blinds, casting soft, golden light across the room. I looked down at Sarah, still sleeping peacefully in my arms, her tiny fingers clutching the fabric of my shirt. For a moment, I let myself believe that everything was normal. That today would be just another day in the life of our family. But the weight of last night came crashing down on me almost immediately, and I felt my stomach churn. Michael was gone. The father of my children, the man I had built my life with, was no longer here. And I didn't know if I wanted him to come back. I stood up carefully, laying Sarah down in her playpen before heading to the kitchen. I could hear Anna and Jack upstairs, playing quietly in their rooms. They had no idea what had happened. How could they? They were still too young to understand that sometimes, the people you trust the most can hurt you in ways you never imagined. I was halfway through making breakfast when my phone buzzed on the counter. It was Michael. Michael, I'm sorry. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I needed to tell you again. I messed up. I love you, Emma. I love the kids. Please, can we just talk? I stared at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. Part of me wanted to throw the phone across the room, to scream and cry and demand to know how he could betray me like that. But another part of me, the part that had loved him for so many years, wanted answers. Closure. Before I could overthink it, I typed a response. I need time. Don't contact me for a while. I hit send and turned off my phone, shoving it into a drawer. I couldn't deal with him right now. Not when the wound was still so fresh. I needed time to think, to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. Later that day, after I had finally gotten the kids settled down for naps, I called my best friend, Leah. She answered on the second ring, her cheerful voice instantly bringing tears to my eyes. Hey, Em. What's up? My voice broke before I could get the words out. Leah, I need to talk to you. Emma? Her tone changed immediately, concern creeping into her voice. What happened? Are you okay? No, I whispered, the tears starting to flow freely now. I'm not okay. I told her everything, spilling out the entire story in a rush of words and sobs. The moment I saw them, the confrontation, Michael leaving, it all came tumbling out, and by the time I was done, I was exhausted. Oh my God, Emma, Leah breathed. I don't even know what to say. I can't believe he did that. With your baby in the car? What the hell? I don't know what to do, I said, wiping at my eyes. I don't know if I can ever forgive him. Leah was quiet for a moment, then she sighed. Look, I'm not going to pretend I have all the answers, but I do know one thing, you don't have to make any decisions right now. Take some time. Let yourself feel everything. And whatever you decide, I'll be here for you. Her words felt like a lifeline, something solid to hold on to in the midst of all this chaos. Thank you, I whispered. Of course, she said softly. I'll come over tomorrow, okay? I'll bring coffee. We'll figure this out. We hung up, and for the first time all day, I felt a small sense of relief. I wasn't alone in this. I had people who cared about me, people who would help me through this mess, no matter how it ended. The next few days passed in a blur. Michael sent a few more texts, but I didn't respond. I needed space, and he seemed to understand that, at least for now. Leah came over every day, helping with the kids, talking me through my feelings, letting me cry when I needed to. I hadn't told the kids anything yet. They were too young to understand, and I didn't want to burden them with adult problems. But I knew I couldn't keep it from them forever. Eventually, they'd notice their dad wasn't coming home. Eventually, they'd ask questions. As the days turned into a week, the weight of the decision I had to make pressed down on me like a ton of bricks. Could I forgive Michael for what he had done? Could I ever trust him again? Or was this the end of our marriage? I didn't have the answers yet. All I knew was that something fundamental had shifted between us, and nothing would ever be the same again. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself dreading the inevitable conversation with the kids. I knew I couldn't avoid it forever, but how do you explain something like this to a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old? How do you make them understand that the person they love, the person who is supposed to protect them, has done something to shatter the trust of their family. Anna and Jack were blissfully unaware that anything was wrong, their days filled with the usual routine of playing, eating, and fighting over toys. Sarah, being a baby, was even more oblivious. But the weight of the situation hung over me like a dark cloud. Every time Anna asked where her daddy was, I felt a sharp pang in my chest. I always came up with some vague excuse: daddy's working late, or he's staying with a friend for a bit. I hated lying to them, but the truth felt too heavy for their little shoulders. One morning, a few weeks after everything happened, Anna came to me with a drawing. It was a simple picture, stick figures of our family, all smiling, with the sun shining brightly above us. But there was something about it that made my heart break. In the picture, Michael was holding her hand, and Jack was sitting on his shoulders, both of them beaming with joy. "Do you like it, Mommy?" she asked, her big brown eyes looking up at me with so much hope and pride. I swallowed the lump in my throat and smiled. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. I love it." She grinned and skipped off to show Jack, leaving me standing there with the picture in my hand, my heart aching. That was the moment I knew I couldn't put it off any longer. They deserved to know something, even if I couldn't give them the full story yet. Later that evening, after I had put Sarah to bed, I called Anna and Jack into the living room. They came running in, expecting some kind of fun family activity, their faces lighting up with excitement. But as soon as they saw the serious expression on my face, their smiles faded. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Anna asked, her voice small and concerned. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. This was going to be one of the hardest conversations I'd ever have. "Come here, both of you," I said, patting the couch beside me. They climbed up, snuggling in close to me on either side. I wrapped my arms around them, holding them tight, as if I could shield them from the pain that was about to come. "Mommy needs to talk to you about something important," I began, my voice shaking a little. "You've probably noticed that Daddy hasn't been around as much lately." Anna nodded, her eyes wide. Jack just stared at me, his thumb in his mouth. "Well," I continued, "sometimes grown-ups have problems. And right now, Mommy and Daddy are trying to figure out some things. That's why Daddy isn't living here right now." Anna's face scrunched up in confusion. "But why? Did we do something wrong?" My heart broke at her words, and I pulled her closer, kissing the top of her head. "No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong. This isn't your fault, okay? It's just something between Mommy and Daddy. We love you so much, and that will never change." Jack, too young to fully understand, leaned into me and asked softly, "Is Daddy coming back?" "I don't know yet," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "But no matter what happens, Mommy and Daddy both love you very much. And we're going to make sure that you're taken care of, no matter what." Anna looked up at me, her big eyes brimming with unshed tears. "But I miss Daddy." "I know, sweetie," I said, my voice cracking. "I miss him too." It was the truth. As much as I hated what he had done, as much as I was filled with anger and betrayal, there was still a part of me that missed the man I had once loved. The father of my children. But I couldn't let that cloud my judgment. Not when it came to their well-being. We sat there for a long time, the three of us huddled together on the couch, as I tried to comfort them the best I could. I knew this wasn't the end of the conversation. There would be more questions, more confusion, more tears. But for now, I had told them what they needed to know. Over the next few weeks, Michael and I began working out a visitation schedule. As much as I wanted to protect the kids from the pain of what had happened, I knew they needed their father in their lives. He had hurt me, but he hadn't stopped being their dad. The first time Michael came to pick up the kids, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. I didn't want to see him. I wasn't ready to face him yet, to confront the man who had shattered our family. But this wasn't about me. It was about them. "Daddy," Anna cried when she saw him at the door, her little face lighting up with joy. She ran to him, throwing her arms around his legs, and Jack followed closely behind, babbling excitedly about his toys. Michael scooped them up, his face softening as he hugged them tightly. For a moment, I stood there, watching him with our children, and I felt a pang of sadness. This was the man I had fallen in love with, the man I had built a life with. But that life felt so distant now, like a memory from another time. "Hi," Michael said, his voice tentative, as he glanced at me over their heads. "Hi," I replied, my voice clipped. I wasn't ready for small talk. I just wanted this to be over. "I'll have them back by dinner," he said, shifting uncomfortably. I nodded, stepping back to let them go. "Okay." He hesitated for a moment, like he wanted to say more, but I turned away before he could. I couldn't handle a conversation with him right now, not when the wound was still so raw. Watching him drive away with the kids was harder than I had anticipated. I had been with him every day, every night, for years. The thought of them being with him, without me, filled me with a sense of dread. Would they ask him questions? Would they start to blame me for the fact that he wasn't living with us anymore? I spent the entire afternoon pacing the house, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. What if Michael used the time with them to turn them against me? What if they started to prefer being with him? What if they didn't want to come back? But when they returned, they were just as happy as they had been when they left. Anna and Jack bounded into the house, full of stories about the park and the ice cream shop and all the fun things they had done with their dad. And for a brief moment, I felt relieved. Maybe, just maybe, we could make this work for them. As the weeks passed, things settled into a new routine. Michael saw the kids regularly, and we kept our communication to the bare minimum. Every interaction felt strained, awkward, like we were tiptoeing around the giant, unspoken issue between us. The kids didn't ask too many questions at first, but I knew they were struggling to understand what was happening. Anna, especially, became more clingy, often asking me at bedtime if Daddy was coming home soon. "Mommy," she asked one night as I tucked her into bed, "is Daddy still mad at you?" I froze, my heart aching at her words. "No, sweetie, Daddy's not mad at me. This isn't about being mad." "Then why can't he come home?" she asked, her voice small and full of confusion. I sighed, sitting down on the edge of her bed. Sometimes, grown-ups have to figure out big problems. And right now, Mommy and Daddy are trying to figure out how to be the best parents for you and Jack and Sarah. "Will he ever come back?" she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. I didn't have an answer for that. I didn't know if Michael and I could ever repair what had been broken. But I couldn't tell her that. Not yet. "I don't know, Anna," I said softly, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. "But no matter what, we both love you very much. That will never change." She nodded, though I could see the uncertainty still lingering in her eyes. I kissed her forehead and turned off the light, closing the door behind me with a heavy heart. The kids adjusted better than I had expected, but the pain of the situation lingered for all of us. I could see the cracks forming in their understanding of the world, the way they hesitated before asking about their dad, the way they watched me a little more closely, like they were waiting for something to break. But slowly, day by day, we found our new normal. The kids adapted to the schedule, and I learned to manage the emotional roller coaster of sharing their time with Michael. I wasn't ready to forgive him, but I had to learn to coexist with him, for their sake. I still didn't know what the future held for me and Michael, whether we could ever rebuild the trust that had been shattered. But for now, I focused on the kids, on giving them the love and stability they needed. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed these Reddit stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next one.